Coming to you live from Casa del Chalfen, a.k.a. Ted Chalfen's house. I'm Jake Shapiro alongside Ted, bringing to you the BSN Buffs postgame presented by the Blake Street Tavern. We're wrapping up the Colorado Buffaloes' 56-60 defeat at the hands of the Oregon State Beavers, and a really sloppy game, Ted.
I figured it would be. I predicted the Buffs would win this one by a score in the 60s, but I think 50s was equally likely going in, and that's what it proved to be. I thought the first team to 50 would win. It turned out that the Buffs didn't get it done, even though they did get to 50 first. Their offense completely faltered down the stretch, I think largely because they didn't have their best player in the game.
2 straight games where the Buffaloes only scored 56 points, and in this game their top 3 scorers only scored combined 3 points. Granted, Scott was hurt, but that's got to be concerning.
George King wasn't in the arena. I mean, he may have been in the state, he may have been in the city, but he wasn't in the arena tonight. He had an awful game. Just never asserted himself whatsoever. Didn't take as many shots as he should have, and the shots he took weren't good shots. Missed a key free throw that forced the Buffs into a fouling situation late in the game. He just had an awful night, and when you've got your best player out, I think you need 2 of your 3 guys who are your wing players to be on, and tonight only one of them was.
King 0 of 6 from the field, missed a key free throw down the stretch, but maybe more concerning was Dominique Collier's play. He has 8 turnovers in this game, and it was really head-scratching, some of the plays he was making. And, I mean, you even called it at times. I mean, every time he came down the court, it looked like he was going to turn over the ball.
You could see a lot of stuff before it happened. There was one time when he turned it over, and I knew that he was going to foul Gary Payton after he turned it over out of frustration. Dom has a bad tendency to do that, to take bad fouls after he turns it over, trying to steal it back. And then later in the game, the Buffs had a chance, I believe, to take the lead, or maybe they were already even up 2. But it was either tied or they were up, and I said out loud, "Don't turn it over, Dom," and 2 seconds later, that's exactly what he did. He had been playing a lot better, and so hopefully this is just a blip and not anything to be concerned about, because he'd been cutting way down on the turnovers before tonight. But very, very bad game from Dom Collier. And you can't point to one thing. I mean, there were 16 other turnovers that didn't involve him, but I think if he's playing the way he had been tonight, I think the Buffs probably win the game.
Xavier Talton even looked well, despite the fact he had 5 turnovers in this game, but the juxtaposition in guard play of Gary Payton II, 17 points in 37 minutes with 6 boards and 4 assists, you're looking at perhaps the best player in the conference, and you match that with just absolute slop city from the Buffs. You're not going to win a road game like that.
Slop City and Tinkletown, but
that's my headline
yeah,
for the recap.
It's good. The Buffs don't have great guard play. They haven't had great guard play. They've had good guard play the last couple of games, and that's been taken as a real positive sign. But you look, and they just, at the guard position, are far behind a lot of the league, even teams in the bottom half of the league. They don't even have a guy like Ike Rebu. They don't even have a guy who's that reliable, and that's probably the worst team in the conference, Washington State. So if Collier can be consistent, he doesn't have to light up the scoreboard, but if he can just be consistent, I think the Buffs win the game, and I think it's going to be key, and you have 2 must-win games coming up this week, and he's got to be better, and King and Fortune have got to show up, because Trayshawn Fletcher, he finally got it going tonight, but I think
if he wasn't going to get it going, they weren't going to get to 50 points.
No, they weren't going to get to 40 points if he didn't get it going. Well, maybe, but it would have been close. He can't do it on his own, and especially if Josh Scott's going to miss any period of time. Tad Boyle said he has an ankle sprain, said he'd be back, but didn't say if he'd be back immediately. Washington State, you might be able to get by without him, but it's going to be tough going forward, and those other players that were kind of absent tonight are really going to have to step up.
And let's talk about Scott a little bit. He left the game about 16 minutes into it with a little ankle sprain, and you're looking at the Buffs lineup without Josh Scott, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, watch list finalist now, and he's averaging 17 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 blocks a game. He really does everything for this team, and if you're missing him, not that Torrey Miller is a bad player, because Tad Boyle's praised him many a time so far this season.
He was good tonight.
Right, but there is a huge step down from going from Josh Scott, the All-America candidate, to Torrey Miller, an average big man.
Torrey can make plays for you, but he's not a guy that, if the game's on the line, you want the ball in his hands. And the problem that reared its ugly head tonight is, without Josh Scott, the Buffs don't have anybody at the end of the game who you feel comfortable with the ball in their hand. And that's something
especially when George King is not hitting anything.
Yeah, but even so, he's turned the ball over a lot this year even when he's been shooting well. So that's something that Tad's going to have to address for next year, because there isn't an obvious next in command on this team after Josh Scott. There's no guy who looks like he's going to step up and say, give me the ball. And I think if they have Josh Scott in the game, even if he's not himself, he's able to get calls, go to the line. He's a good free throw shooter, and I think that would have made a huge difference on those last couple possessions where the Buffs really looked lost and like they didn't even have a chance.
A really rough road trip in general for the Buffs in Oregon. They lose both games. They go from a chance to play in first place to now fighting for position in the top half of the Pac-12 as they sit 5th, I believe, right now.
Trying to stay out of the bottom half of the Pac-12. They're only a game ahead of Oregon State now.
How things change quickly, and they have Washington State coming in on Thursday and Washington coming in on Saturday. For Tad Chalfin of Ralphie Report, I am Jake Shapiro for BSNBuffs.com. Thanks for watching the BSN Buffs postgame presented by the Blake Street Tavern, and shout out to Cameron for filming. We'll see you next time, and Shabinga.
Let's go Broncos.